The relationship Jane has with Jonathan is a hot mess. In the year and a half, they've never met face to face. She doesn't hardly know anything about him. It's over the telephone. It's on the computer.
I know you believe him. I know you trust him.
I know, and I wish it were easier, but it's not. So I'm just rolling with the punches.
The reason she can't see Jonathan right now, the company that he works for won't allow him to leave the property. He is like enslaved there, and he's living out of his car. It just doesn't make sense. Jonathan constantly relies on Jane to get him out of debt. Jonathan says after this debt is paid off, he stands to receive $7.9 million. Possibly a little higher at this point. One time I went to the bank with Jane to get a large sum of money. I believe it was about $38,000. And of course, the bankers wanted to know what for. And she very timidly said she needed to send it to her boyfriend. I got on my knees and begged her, Jane, please, please don't do this. Just think it through.
I've loaned him approximately $1 million.
I didn't know you had that much money.
It is a gamble, but I believe Jonathan is worth that gamble.
Damn, that's a lot of money, Jane.
Jane absolutely is being scammed.
He makes me feel important. He makes me feel like somebody cares that I exist.
Even though you've not held his hand.
I feel his soul. I feel his love. He pulls at my heart.
What are the words he uses?
You are the air that I breathe. You are my life. What people need to understand is this is my choice. It's my life.
I finally said to her, Jane, I'm gonna hold your hand with flowers because you've got a wedding. I'm gonna hold your hand just to help you get through it and support you, or I'm gonna hold your hand picking you up off the floor.
Well, Rebecca.
Hello.
It's so good to meet you, and I have to say, people would be blessed to have a friend as good as you.
Well, thank you.
You have known her since you were 10 years old.
We were little girls playing Barbie dolls.
Yeah. And you have stood by her side. You have been on bended knee begging her not to do what she's doing.
Right.
This has got to have been painful for you to watch.
Yes, sir. I would say to her, okay, because she didn't want to hear he's a scammer. And I said, okay, he's married. He's not able to come see you this weekend because he can't explain to a wife that, you know, why he's leaving home for that length of time. Because it did hurt her feelings very much that a lot of our friends have turned their back on her because of the decisions she made regarding Jonathan.
And it's not just her friends. 4 banks have kicked her out and said, we're not processing any money for you.
She was sobbing because she wanted this money so that she could send to Jonathan. Got down on my knees. I said, Jane, please, please don't do this. Just wait and seek some advice, somebody that can help you. And she cried and said no. You know, and they closed her account.
But emotion has crowded logic out of her mind because she's not seen him, right?
That's correct. He's not. 16 times that I know of that I was witnessed with her that she made flight arrangements, round-trip flight arrangements for him to come and see her for just the weekend or a few days. And each time he would cancel out. He wasn't able to come in for what, I mean, and the excuses vary, very creative excuses.
Yeah, but 16 times. And by the way, he's not telling her he's in the Middle East or Lithuania. He's in Miami.
Miami, Florida.
Why hasn't she gone down there?
Because he doesn't want her exposed to him living in his car and on this property where they're keeping him imprisoned, so to speak, because of the business transaction that he signed a contract that they could keep him there.
But you know, if I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in something, I don't care what somebody's telling me, and particularly if I'm in love with somebody and I think they're being mistreated, I'm gonna go down there and get a damn sign and march up and down the street or something. Why do you think she hasn't gone down there and been on the scene to try to make something happen? Does she know at the core of her soul this isn't real?
I think she's I feel like my friend is naive and very vulnerable to believing. It's like this man knows how to push her buttons.
Didn't she catch him in a lie real early on that he was sending fake pictures?
Yes, sir.
She caught him right off the bat. She found this picture. She reverse imaged this picture and said, "You're busted, buddy. This isn't you."
That's correct.
She caught his dead ass in a lie.
And I looked at it when she sent it to me on text. I said, wow, he's very debonair. I can see where you'd want to meet this man and continue. And he was 8 years younger than her and 6'2", and it was very exciting.
The point is she caught him.
Yes.
And confronted him with it. And he said, yeah, you're right. It's not me. I didn't want to send you my real pictures because I was embarrassed that I wasn't in great shape.
Exactly.
Jonathan and I started talking online, and it wasn't any time at all that we became friends. He told me he was from Australia, and I did hear an accent, and I thought it was pretty sexy. What I like about Jonathan is he's a very sensitive person. He does carry his heart on his sleeve. He is very emotional. There's something special about him that makes me love him. Jonathan is a widower, has been for 5 years. He has a daughter who is 19 years old. She lives in England. I am in love with Jonathan. This is a picture of Jonathan. He had an evening that he went out with some of his friends. When I look into Jonathan's heart, I see a very kind person, very affectionate. I look at those lips and all I want to do is just kiss them. After 16 months, I still haven't seen Jonathan face to face yet. Jonathan wasn't able to video chat with me because the telephones that he had purchased were cheap. Jonathan has lived in Miami for the last 5 years. He started his dream job about 11 months ago on a construction site. The problem with Jonathan is he is in debt from previous projects that he has conducted. Once Jonathan's debt is paid in full, he will acquire $10.3 million for earnings that he has done on previous jobs. He cannot leave the construction site until his debts are paid. He is being held hostage. I realize we're in the United States of America, but he is being held hostage. There is a guard at the gate that keeps him from leaving the premise. He lives out of his car. The situation is very grim for him, and he has been depressed. After knowing Jonathan for 2 weeks, I started sending him money. One day last year, he was at a job site and he decided to help out and end up almost severing his hand. I sent Jonathan $10,000 to purchase the machinery to repair his hand. This is one of my portfolios from one of the investment companies that I had. Today, it's zero. All the money in this account went to Jonathan. The banks got upset and accused me of trying to finance terrorists. My boyfriend Jonathan is not a terrorist. There are 4 banks that refuse to do business with me any further because of fraudulent activity. Since I've been kicked out of the banks, I have sent Jonathan over $200,000 in cryptocurrency. It's fast, easy, and nobody asks any questions, and there's not supposed to be a trace on it. Over the past year and a half, I have sent him almost $1 million. If you ask my friends and family, everybody would say, Jonathan's a scammer. I'm at the point that I just don't want to hear it anymore. They can say all that they want. I am not going to change my mind.
Oh, no one's going to tell Jane what to do. She's going to take it to the end.
What everybody needs to know is it's my life, and I just don't want anybody else putting in on it. Jonathan says he lives to make me happy, and who doesn't want to believe in a fairy tale?
Hands down, my niece Jane, she is being scammed. I wrote Dr. Phil because he's the only one that can help her. I'm a huge Dr. Phil fan. I've been watching him for 20 years.
Nancy, she's being scammed by someone calling themselves Sean Carter.
I have tried my best to talk to Jane. She won't listen. Everything Jonathan says about himself, he's just a classic scammer.
We speak every single morning to each other. That's our time together. He says, I'm going to spank you, and we have a little thing. Oh yeah, I'm such a bad girl. Go ahead, spank me.
One thing about Jane is she's very much into signs. Jane believes that the day that she met Jonathan is significant because it's the same day she met her husband.
I do believe that I received a sign from Gary because Jonathan and I met the same day that Gary and I had our first date. And I just feel that Gary's saying it's okay.
Jane has also sent Jonathan money. From what I can find out, Jane has sent Jonathan $60,000. I have no idea how much Jane has sent this man. I have no idea. I really hope that Dr. Phil is able to give Jane a serious wake-up call. Get her to stop sending money to Jonathan because she's already lost $60,000 or more to this scammer, and that's a lot of money.
You really care about Jane,
Absolutely.
and you fear that she's being taken advantage of.
Yes, sir.
And you're concerned about her how? But more than just financially.
Correct. I'm concerned about her emotional state also, her heart being taken advantage of as well.
Yeah. The man in the photos is not in Miami. He's not being held hostage at a construction site. He didn't live at the address that we said, and he is certainly not living in his car in Miami because he's here today. And his photos have been used without his consent. He is not part of this scam whatsoever. He is a victim of this scam. Let me ask you something. And I just look at this from the male perspective. I'm sitting here with three women, but I look at this from the male perspective. And I admit I'm not in today's dating market. I've been married to Robin for 45 years. We've been together almost 50. But I cannot imagine that if a man loved a woman, that he would allow her to put herself in jeopardy, to put herself in harm's way, to destroy her lifestyle, to take her home from her, to solve his problems, if he really cared about her.
You okay?
I won't even let her walk near the curb on the street, let alone. I can't imagine if he really loved you. I mean, let's just, you and I, come on, we've been around the track a few times, you and I. What kind of man would ask, demand, threaten a woman to give up her home to solve his problem?
His remarks are, he'll always buy me a bigger home or a better home.
He's asking you what kind of man.
What kind of man?
What kind of man is he?
Okay.
What kind?
Desperate.
I mean,
desperate?
obviously, he's not highly competent, or he wouldn't be in this situation. And he's told you 16 times he's coming to see you, and he hasn't shown, so he doesn't have the ability to get to the damned airport. He's owes money. He's being held hostage in a country where you can't be held hostage. So he doesn't have the ability to discharge his affairs in a competent fashion. And he's got to know that about himself. He knows his history. When you're in a hole, stop digging. But instead, he's asking you to dig in the hole with him. What kind of man would do that? He doesn't know he's going to get that money. He knows that somebody says they owe it to him. But it doesn't, if he has any business sense at all, he knows it doesn't make sense, but yet he would take your home, take you out of your home. You offered to rent the home, but not sell it. No, you've got to sell this and send me that $140,000. I know I told you earlier that it would just be this amount would get it done, and that wasn't true. And then I told you this amount would get it done, and that wouldn't be true. And you're now $800,000 into it, and it hasn't solved his problem, and he wants $140,000 more. What kind of man would take that kind of security away from a woman at this stage of life? Do you have a story or a question for me? Click the link in the description and tell me what in the world is going on.